Okay, the majority of my Faraday cages are old microwaves. When they stop working, yeah, in my house, then I hang on to them and I go buy a new one, of course. But or you can go down to the DI. Now, any Faraday cage needs to be tested to be able to operate properly. And the way that you do that is you need a battery powered radio and you need something very strong like KSL on the AM dial. Okay. The reason what we're doing this, a little electronics here, is a electromagnetic pulse has a wave that goes up and down. Okay, it's a signal. You've probably seen it on TV or something like that, on an oscilloscope or something like that. Anyway, uh, the AM uh, uh, modulation on the radio dial is almost the exact size. So that's why we use an AM radio to do that. Don't use an FM radio. Don't use your phone. None of those things are going to give you the right uh, results. So what I do is I take the battery-powered radio, put it inside the microwave or the can or the screening or anything that you want to use as a Faraday cage. Close the door, and you'll still hear the radio, but you should hear static. You've lost the signal, and that's what you want to happen. Uh, cut the cord off the end of the microwave. That just acts as a receiver going straight into it. But other than that, it's a metal box. If you're getting signals still outside of that closed microwave or whatever it you're using, well, guess what? Microwaves are designed to keep radiation in. And they weren't working before. That means radiation was coming out while you're cooking and doing everything else you wanted. So anyway, that's how you tell what. Did I sort of answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
So putting your laptop inside your fire. Doing that.
Dryer. Dryer was full of holes. It won't work. Refrigerators are full of holes. Washing machines, all the things they're full of holes. Yeah, I don't worry about my phone at all. There's not enough metal in this thing.
What about the silver emergency blanket?
Those are Mylar, but they're full of holes. If you can get several layers of it and make it thick enough, you don't see the holes when you look at aluminum foil or Mylar or these things. Put it under a microwave, you will. A microscope. Yeah. Yeah. But they're
an electronic hole is a little different because a screen, even though it's full of holes, it's not the right.
The wires are close enough together that this big. No, I'm over exaggerating this. Okay, the wires. There we go on the screen. I'm making them big. Okay, and this is the signal. So it's going like this. So basically, it can't get through that hole. Now, if you use something bigger with a bigger hole, then of course it's going right through it.
Will any screening work?
You want copper's the best, and you want some type of metal that's got some aluminum out there, but copper wire is the best.
Where do you get that?
You get it at Home Depot, but it is a special order. I found it on Amazon, more expensive than it was at Home Depot. You got to buy a lot.
What about with the
So the idea is to create a bubble around the device. If with no holes, I mean, you can't like problem with the.
I believe the problem with your washer is that you've got these gaskets that seal the doors closed, but radio waves can get through the rubber, can get through the gaskets, and so there's all kinds of, and all the tubing is that goes in and out. They can come in, they can come through the plastic and through the tubing. So you've got.
I have very high.
Okay, I'm not understanding your question. I apologize.
I have high electricity. I'm on the corner of the and two groups of cable instead. I have 200 condos all around me with all the microwaves, cell phones with mine in my house. It's all
Okay.
windows.
Somebody's trying to tell you a lie.
So what would you do if you were up in the air, lost
That's probably a different issue than an EMP.
That is not an EMP issue at all. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry.
What about when we've gone to so many of these expos and we buy these shiny bags, you know, with the Ziploc, and they're called dirty bags.
Hmm.
What is your
My nephew works up at Hill Air Force Base for Boeing. He works in the EMP lab, where all they do all day long is test different things for EMP, mostly for airplanes, because they don't want them falling out of the sky. And so they do a lot of testing. And I gave him actually 7 of those bags. I bought them and had them tested for me. I didn't do it. They found that if you nest 2 of the bags together, it works great. Unfortunately, the Ziploc part of it right there. So what you're going to do is you're going to put your stuff in one, and then turn it around and put the bag over the other way. If that makes any sense at all. Okay. Uh-huh. And so I actually use a couple of those bags. I was very leery at first in using them, but when he tested them and gave the okay, I said, okay. And I bought a bunch more. So I have an old laptop that is totally off grid that I have wrapped up in one of my Faraday cages. I've got 15 radios. I have 12 of them in EMP bags or in a Faraday cage. I have certain ones that I want to have out all the time. That's what I'm talking about, radios. Yes. Yeah, I only have one regular radio. Everything else is either hams or the MMR, FSR radios.
For a time, I was storing my laptop.
There's really not enough metal in the modern laptops. Mm-hmm. Now, you plug that into the internet, we have a problem. With power cord, yeah. Yeah.
So unplug
it. If you want to do that every night, I just store an extra one that I'm not using it. It's always in the Faraday cage. And I'm not worried about my phone. There's no one to talk to on the other end anyway, because all the microwave towers are down. I've got a nice clock for about 12 hours when it runs out of electricity. Yes, when you plug your modem in, or you plug your electricity for the computer in, that's all. The power grid is all one very large receiver, and that's why they come through the wires, and you hit your electrical equipment, your computers, your medical equipment, your communication equipment, everything that you really don't want to be hit, it hits.
Quick question.
I'll get you, Gary.
It's related here. It's, you know, they have the new little gadgets where you just set your cell phone on to charge it, or set any other types of devices on to charge it.
I'm going to say I don't know on that. I don't know everything. Okay. I'll find out, though. I'll have to ask and see what testing has been done on that. I don't tell you anything unless either I personally have tested it or I've had somebody that I trust test it. It's like earlier they were talking about the sun ovens and putting a turkey in the sun oven. When I first heard about that, I mean, that you could actually cook a turkey in a sun oven. I bought one, and I went down and bought me a turkey. It's thawed out, ready to go. I put it in the sun oven. 4 days later, it's still not even cooked. So I throw that out and go, and I went and got me another turkey. This time I cut it in half. 4 days later, it's still not cooked. I didn't have that. I was using a glass Pyrex plant. I didn't know better. Okay. So I went and got me a third turkey, and that cooked because I quartered it up. Yes, you can cook a turkey in a sun oven, but not the way you're thinking. Yes, but experiment with things. If you bought a sun oven, I heard someone here say they bought one and never use it. Use it. Make all your mistakes now. So when you're stressed out because the power's out, you have no water, the sewer's not working, and your kids are screaming or grandkids are screaming because they want attention, and you don't know what to do next. Well, the power just went out. You have the biggest barbecue in the neighborhood. Gary. I don't have that. It's just one World One, and it's 38 pages long, and we're now on page 38. In 1979, I put a list together of all the prophecies and prophecies that had been foretold. It was single-spaced, 38 pages long. And that was 79. In 1989, 10 years later, 79, we're on page 45. 89, we were on page 60, so we jumped quite a bit. 89, we're on page 64. Not a whole lot happened there. 99, we're now on. I think I got my pages set up. Yeah, it was. I'm sorry. Let's try this again. 1979. We're on page 10. In the 89, page 21. 89, 99, page 26. We didn't get too far right there. 2009. We're on page 36. And as of now, we're on page 38 of 38 pages. There's 2 left. No, that's not true.
That's why some people are getting a lot of preacher blessings that they will be going to Southfield.
I don't know anything about that, so I won't comment on it. Anyway. Okay.
Panel of
if we had an EMP, there seems to be a lot of discussion on EMPs. If we had an EMP, imagine what it would be like for the power grid to go down for a year
Or more.
or more. Would you be concerned, really, if there was an EMP, would you be concerned about your laptop working or your cell phone?
Well, the only thing I have on my laptop is my genealogy and photos.
I'm just saying, Michelle talked about priorities, and it seems like, man, if there was an EMP, there'd be a lot higher priorities.
Which is why when it comes to a laptop, it's an old one. It's one I'm not really concerned about. You can sit there for another 30 years and it'll be just as useful. Gary first. Yes. They need to build them over in France, and then in South Korea also builds them. What we see a problem here when transportation isn't working, getting them across the ocean. Okay, so yes, they have to be pre-built, built from scratch. Sorry, customized for whatever thing you have. How are you going to communicate that with them when no communication is going on? I don't know. I pigeon maybe. But okay, they get it built. It takes them about 2 years to build one. So, and that's just one. Yeah. There's 920 of them here in the United States. So you do the math on that. It's not 1 year. It's not 2 years. It's many years. And I'm not going to speculate how many, but I know it's more than 2. And think about what your life right now would be like without electricity. I would honestly challenge you to go home for a week and turn your power off. That means you're losing all the food in your freezer, all the food in your refrigerator. Your water's not working. Your gas isn't working. Yeah, all that's not working. That is what your life is going to be. Go back and read the pioneer stories. My great grandfather and great grandmother came across the plains, and their stories of what they went through are so inspiring. They give me ideas of what I would do now if I were back in those conditions, which is what we're talking about. No, it will be much less. I'm going to tell you why. Because out of 238 million people in the United States, we're probably going to be down to about 40 million in the first year. Think of all the people that are on dialysis, heart monitors, diabetics. Think about all the people on antidepressants. You want them running around? Okay, here first.
I just have a question for Michelle. I haven't noticed very much weed barrier out in your gardens. Do you not believe in that?
I don't believe in it because weed barrier kills the soil. Weed barrier doesn't let anything down, and you don't want to kill the soil because inside of the soil you have these mycelium networks. You know, he talks about, do you want all the people that are not on antidepressants to be running around? Well, they all need to be growing St. John's wort that's right over there, and they need to know how to make a tincture or a tea out of it. That's the key to these pieces. Is, you know, there's something kind of interesting. My husband and I read a lot about psychology and the way the brain works, and we only know what we know. That's all it is. We only know what we know. And so what we're doing is we're taking our filter, the lens that we're looking at the world through, and we're applying it to what might happen in the future. But we only know what we know. We only know what exists currently. We don't know what's out there. We can look back into history and say, well, it might be like this. It might be like this. And we can look through that lens, and it helps to give us a better idea of what we're seeing. But we only know what we know. Most likely, any type of scenario like we're envisioning right now will be exponentially different than what we expect because we don't know it. We've never lived it before. But that's why we've really tried to focus today on core principles, things that could help you survive in any kind of scenario. Core principles like even getting your brain in the right place so that in an emergency scenario, you aren't so freaked out that you're one of those first that die in the first week, let alone the first year. You know, my biggest purpose or my biggest goal is to be useful. That's my biggest goal in life for myself personally, is to be useful. And unless you have some of these just underlying pieces in place, you can't be useful. So there's a lot of what ifs, there's a lot of things we can talk about and what could we do. And but honestly, a lot of it we don't really know. We don't really know what would happen because we're only looking through the lens of our own personal knowledge. So that didn't answer your question. But yeah, so the soil is going to become is our friend, and the soil has what's called a mycelium network inside of it, which is like the communication system for plants. And so the tree over here might not have all the nutrients that it needs, but it communicates with the networks underground to find nutrients that are over here. And these networks bring all the nutrients. It's an underground communication system. So as soon as we put something like weed barrier, we've killed all of the underground communication system. So now the plant that's planted on top of it can only rely on the thing that it itself can get through the soil that it itself is planted in. It's killed all of the other networks. So there was a lot of weed barrier in this yard when we moved in about 8 years ago, and I've ripped it slowly out, piece by piece by piece, for that reason. Because we need to have, it's called the permaculture principle. You need to have the entire growth system interconnected. That's really, I extrapolate that permaculture principle into people and into communities as well. And that's why I have wonderful experts like this come and join us, because this is a permaculture of sorts where it's an interconnected network of knowledge. And that's really the only way that anybody's going to survive if anything like this happens, is through an interconnected community of everybody bringing the pieces that they know and that they can help with. And then that supports everybody else. Sorry, that was a side note.
I recommend a book called Deep Survival.
Excellent book. Deep Survival. He's recommending a book called Deep Survival.
Deep Survival. Get a copy and read it.
It's all about the psychology and why those who survive.
The person who
Amazing
wrote
book.
it has very deep knowledge of both physiology and psychology. And it gets a little deep there, but it's very engaging. It goes through various scenarios where people either did or did not survive. Why?
Yes, fascinating. Deep Survival.
What we were talking about sounds like a lot of concentration where everybody pulls their resources and knowledge and everything together.
Yeah, he said it sounds a lot like the law of consecration. I was actually reading an article about the communities that exist in the tunnels in Las Vegas. Random, but that's how they live. It's a very shared community. Even in these homeless places, they figured out that that's how you survive, and that's how you survive.
So the wheat berries. You were talking about soaking all of your grains and beans. So on the wheat, if you soak it, how do you dry it back out to be flour to make bread?
So you do it the opposite way. You got to think about soaking after the flour is made. So you actually grind the flour, and then you add water to the flour as you would in a recipe, and you let it sour with a starter. You let it sour overnight, and that is soaking off that phytic acid, the problem pieces.
The only healthy bread is sourdough bread.
Really, yes, 100%. That's a great statement.
I just wanted to say, I so appreciated your talk this morning, and I agree for game for my grandson, but just the part I was here when you were talking about the importance of the heirloom seeds and sprouting. I mean, I've heard these things before for years. We all have. But it really struck me when you said that's the first thing you do is sprout, because you have live food, enzymes. That was so key, because for me, I live in townhouse. They don't let us do anything. The HOA is maddening. And so you do what you have to do, when you're single. Talk to me, right, Robin? And we do a lot of things together. We try to do history together, but especially at events like this. And as much as I try to have little pots of food and growing things on my little patio, it's just a joke. And there is no mycelial thing. You've got a pot that's this, and I've even put them this big, and it's very frustrating to me. So I thought, go back to the sprouts. I mean, that's something anybody can do anywhere, right? If you've got the water stored and you're murky.
Yep. I did want to tell people too. I believe you were talking a lot about EMFs when you're living in a townhouse community like that. It's different than an EMP. EMF is electromagnetic frequency, and it sounds like you're bombarded with it. If you're curious to have your place filtered or find out about it, there's a contact for you. That's my son who was teaching out there about the rainwater system. He runs an EMF filtering service, and so he can come to your house and test it for you. Jens, Jens is his name. Jens. Yep. No. He just comes and tests and filters your home. So it just takes care of your home, is all it does.
That's different from Josh.
Or Josh.
Josh
Oh, perfect. Yeah, they're brothers. They're twin brothers. Yeah, okay, good. Then you already know about it.
Talking about filtering, what does the charcoal do in the filter?
You know, I'm going to let Kenneth answer that because he's the one who taught me how to make filters.
Because I learned how to make my own turkey, and then you talk about the charcoal.
So the
asked her a question when we were with her. What about all of the chemical trails with the carbon and all that?
It's our life that we live right now.
They say it'll keep the air and things from growing.
I proved them wrong. Have you seen my garden?
She does
That's all I
not.
can say.
She's lying. She does not have a garden. She has a forest, a jungle.
You mean the child-sized cauliflower plants? And my daughter's like, those cauliflower plants are child-sized.
Anyway, as far as filtering water, there's two things that need to happen for you to get water that's safe to drink. First, it needs to be filtered. That means all the big stuff out as much as possible. And the second thing, it needs to be purified. Thank you. And that's what the charcoal does. And you really want to, if possible, get activated charcoal. Now you can actually make your own charcoal. Here in Utah, we burn a lot of pinyon, and pinyon makes great charcoal. So, but it's going to slow you down because you got to burn it first, and then. But anyway, that works as well. So the combination of the two, of putting them together, hold that for me. Well, what I'm going to ask you to do, this is something you can do with the stuff in your house, even in a townhouse. Okay, grab a bucket, a 5-6 gallon bucket. Doesn't matter the size. It's just a container. And I like using muslin. It's fairly tight knit, but if not, the sheets off your bed, preferably clean. Okay, and I've tried pillowcases, and they didn't work too good. But I'm not saying it won't work. But anyway, I put a little divot in the middle here, and my first layer is charcoal. Now you can go down to the local fish sales place, and yeah, okay, and they will have the activated charcoal that they use in fish tanks. Okay, and you're going to put about a 1-2 inch layer in there, and it's going to look like this. Okay, that's the purifier. That's the last stage. That's yes. Okay, and then you could put another cloth in there, and you put in what I call clay earth. Basically, unless you live in a river bottom or on top of a mountain, you have that type of soil in your backyard. And you want about a 3 to 4 inch layer, and it's going to go like this. It won't be perfect. Don't worry about it. Then you get one more cloth in there, so we have 3 cloths. And the last thing we put in there is a couple stones, clean river rock stones. It doesn't really matter. All they do is keep the top layer from floating. Okay. And then you're going to put your water through that. Now, let's back up here all the way back to the beginning. Before you put all that together, cut a hole near the bottom of the bucket so you can put a collecting dish in and out, like a pie pan or something like that, in and out on a regular basis without having to take the whole thing apart. And then you pour your water through. The first couple of times, it's going to come out black. It's mainly because that's the residue off the charcoal. It's safe to drink, but you can look at it and you go, I don't think so. Okay. You can pour it back through until when it comes out clear. That's when I mean, at any point, it's safe to drink, even though it looks black or brownish, because it does have some charcoal in it. You can eat charcoal. It's not going to hurt you at all. It's just not aesthetically pleasing to our systems. Okay.
Kenneth, we just have some questions from the chat on YouTube. And so someone was asking about the EMP bags, where they would be able to purchase those.
Amazon.
And then there was a question we had for Grant, and it was what brand and model of the orange and black battery think on the bench behind Ken?
That one's that's an old one. What was that? It was Xantrax.
The ones that they still sell are made by Duracell.
Yeah, it has a Duracell brand on it now. I think it was Xantrax or Duracell 2. What was the model number? 2380.
Mine still works.
Get the battery. So yeah, there's a number of them. That was a good one. It had the largest lead acid battery that I could find in a jump starter. I didn't show off. There's other jump start battery systems now made, at least for your car, but that one was nice because you can charge it up with a 30-watt solar panel and so on. Just back on the charcoal, just charcoal specifically binds with chemicals, and so it's what takes taste, smells, chemicals out of the water aspect, or out of the water specifically.
A long time ago, I got these. I know. I got what I call elephant condoms. I'm sorry, from Grant. There's these great big water filters, about yay tall, industrial size. Okay, and so that came from my wife, by the way. Anyway, but I use that as a pre-filter. Get all the little bit. When you go down to the stream, you get water. Are you going to get clean water? No. You're going to get twigs and leaves and murky stuff and whatever is in the water. So I use that as a pre-filter. From there, then I go to the other 5-gallon filter, and then now here's a couple things, good and bad. The good thing is it will filter 8 gallons per day. I thought, well, let's see, it's a family of 8, 1 gallon per person per day, right? The downside is it takes 24 hours to filter 8 gallons. The nice thing is that because there's a hole in the bottom, you can put a collecting edition and you can go do other things while it's filtering. You're not tied down trying to babysit it. I really like the KD9 and Pure filters. But like the Hiker Pro, I mean, you have to sit there and pump it until you get a 30-inch bicep, and it's great. No, I want something I don't have to worry about. I taught that when I was down in Peru, working with people with the cholera epidemic. We needed something that would filter out cholera, and this works. This will filter out cryptosporidium, and what's that? Giardia. Yeah, Giardia. Thank you. That's in our waters. And if you think we don't have a problem with cholera, to the first disaster, we will. It's what happens. Where's everybody doing their duty when their toilets are backed up? They're going in the guard, they're going down to the stream, they're going to the water sources. It gets into your water sources that you're collecting from. So I think I did a class earlier on water collection. I only heard bits and pieces of it, but it sounded really good. I would take whatever that does. I've got four rain barrels on my house, and I clean them out regularly. But that's just a start. My nephew, or not my nephew, my brother-in-law does curbing, siding and gutters. Sorry, I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Anyway, I had him cut all of my gutters about that far off the ground. and then screw it back together. What I can do with that is now I can take my garbage can with a clean plastic bag inside of it, put it under the gutter or under the downspout, and I now have another rain collection. A typical Utah rainstorm of about half an inch on a 2,000 square foot home, a roof, you can collect about 90 gallons of water. Don't let it go to waste. I don't know how I got on that, but we were talking about the buckets. We'll on a 2,000 square foot roof. So add or subtract depending on how big your roof really is. Okay. We'll produce about 90 gallons of water. You just have to be able to catch it all. I was in Africa, in Angola, and every single rainstorm, they had their plastic all pre-cut, and they would go and tape it to the house and tape it so it funneled down into a bucket. There was not a single drop that was wasted. But
just a comment on that. Ever since we started making sourdough bread about 10 years ago, and I learned something interesting with sourdough bread. You have got, I was using tap water. Tap water has chlorine in it. Chlorine kills bacteria. Sourdough start is composed of bacteria. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what happens to your sourdough start when you use tap water. Anyway, we started using the purified water from the grocery store and thought that was really stupid. So we got ourselves a big Berkey. There are other varieties of purifiers that some people like better. We've been using the Berkey, and we got a halogen filter for it. Then we've gotten the giant size Berkey since then. But we use the Berkey. We live in Manti, and the Manti city water, especially in the summer, is a little bit less than wonderful. We have been using the purified water for all of our culinary needs, and we do quite a bit of, we do a lot of bone broth, we do a lot of sourdough and other things that call beans and things that call for a lot of purified water. And we have had no problem with that. We use it for all our culinary purposes. I would strongly recommend it. That's not the only thing you need to do to purify your water. If you're starting out, it'll purify some things out. You may have to heat it if there's a viral problem. You might need to heat it. I forgot to mention today that you can use what's called a wappy in your sun oven, or you could use it any place else too. I can't remember what the wappy stands for, but basically it's a little instrument that has some wax in it that melts at 140 degrees, and when your wax reaches 140 degrees and melts, then you know that the water is hot enough to have killed the bacteria in it, and then you can take it out, and then the wax hardens up and you can reuse it. You can do that in a sun oven. You can do that in a thermal cooker. But you might need to do that. You might need to pre-filter your water through the charcoal or even through a T-shirt or something to get all the crud out of it before you put it through your purifier. But get used to start purifying your water now. Get used to doing it and get used to using it. It'll be healthier for you, and it won't be a big switch when you have to do it. Just to reiterate what somebody's already said, make your first 50,000 mistakes now, because you will make 50,000 mistakes. Do it now while it's easy and cheap to fix them.
WAPI.
Yeah. For the benefit of YouTube, the other unit I held up was the Energy Kodiak, I think, and then I also had a Gold Zero. So there's a number of models that would be about the same capacity as this Kodiak one I held up. That was just one that was sold frequently 5, 6, 7 years ago. So,
can I give you Can I give you a dose of reality? Have you paid any attention to what's happening in the South China Sea or in the Middle East? Yeah. Things are heating up faster. We're on the fast train to disaster here. Make your mistakes now. Learn now. When I usually teach any type of seminar, I try to bring home the fact that two things. I'm not teaching you to save yourself. I'm teaching you to be a teacher to your family, to your neighbors, to your loved ones. Okay. And nothing, no matter how bad it gets, you can do this. You don't have to die. Listen to Dr. Michelle. She'll give you every health, nothing there on the planet, and they're all good. She's worth listening to. But you need to do something and do it now. I don't give out timelines. Even the 38-page thing that Gary brought up was not a timeline. But things are happening, and they're happening fast. It's no longer time to get prepared. You need to be already prepared. Oh, but I just started. Well, then start faster. Don't sit on your laurels. Move forward, and you can do this.
Great summary. Thank you. And I'm the perfect testament to his teacher, because do you remember when I was sitting in your living room and didn't have a clue about anything? And Kenneth was one of my very first teachers. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being online. Those are still with us. This has been a long day. And if you will also give me feedback, I will be emailing out the links for all of this. And if you will give me feedback through email on what other things you would like to learn, there's Living Well classes that I do all the time. We do them here in the structure. We're doing them year round. It's all hands-on. So, everything that we've talked about, a lot of what Linda's also been one of my teachers over the years. And a lot of things we're doing hands-on. So if you want to know what the heck sourdough is, come and make it with me. That's what these classes are. It's just so that you can actually do it. When you do it, all of a sudden you gain confidence, and then you can go do it at home. So that's all that is. So let me know, what do you want to learn? And we'll have classes. So thank you all for being here, for sticking with us, and we'll do this again.